hello, welcome to another episode of Jim's Allotment Garden. Okay, so as I explained, there's a gap behind here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some of this tape in. Now this stuff is really good quality. It's called High Bond tape. It's from High Bond and it's from High Bond Tape Limited. And there's various versions of this on the market, but this is really good stuff. So all I'm going to do is take this pane of glass out, put a few strips along the back here because it's basically that thick. So obviously I want it to be 2 or 3 times that thickness, and then put it back in, and then within sort of 48 hours this will basically sort of stick really hard to the plastic, and then that'll hold it all in, stop any drops coming into the greenhouse. Okay, so that's the perspex back in place. As you can see there, I've got the tape all the way running along the back, so that's going to basically generate a seal inside there which will stop any wind or draft coming through during the winter months. Okay, so now to make this glass a little bit more succinct, I don't know if you can hear, but it's kind of rattling a little bit in the frame. What I'm going to do is take the glass out and also apply some tape on the underneath of this piece of glass on that side and also that side. Okay, so just by using a small scraper, I'm just going to scrape out the old tape which is already in there. I'm going to scrape all that all the way up, basically just putting it under the edge like that, and then as you can see, if you just run it up like that, what you can do is get the old tape off. It's quite easy, it takes 2 seconds, but you need a reasonably sharp scraper like that. Just finish that last bit off there. Do the same on the other side, and then apply the new tape down that edge. Okay, so that's it with the new tape on. Obviously this is double-sided sticky, so it's sticky on this side as well. So what I'll do now is put the glass back in, and then I can put the clips in the bottom bar on. Okay, so that's the window back in place, and I've tightened up the nuts at the back. So now the windows, the glass is back in the window. I've put the clips back on the out, or sorry, I've put them on for the first time on the back. So that's now a completed assembly. As you can see, the window doesn't vibrate or rattle when so it's all one solid piece. So when that shuts like that, it's a nice solid fit, and there's no, the glass doesn't move at all. So that's the side under finish, except for the point where I'm going to make a different sort of locking mechanism and mechanism to bring the window out, because that's basically not suitable as it's underneath the shelf. So I'll be making another version of this, which is going to be a little bit different from this, but it'll be along the same kind of principle. But rather than it locking into here, it will catch onto this part here. More will become apparent in the clips that I'll do that, which will be in the next episode. Okay, so this is the second opening window I'm going to put in the greenhouse, and this again is recycled. Again, what I've done is I've taken it all apart, got some Brillo pad, the wire wool, done that all over, and what I've actually done with this, I've shortened it slightly. I've taken about 3 inches off this side and this side here to make the whole window shorter, purely because that's the size of the plastic that I got that would fit in it. So here's the plastic, and all I've done is just cut it to size. What I needed to do obviously is cut the width, and then it would actually fit in. Now this is smaller than a standard piece of glass that goes into a greenhouse, and that's why I've used plastic. Plastic's not ideal because it doesn't let all of the frequencies of light through it, so the plants won't get quite as much light as they will before. It does let most of it through, dependent on the plastic, but the other reason I've used plastic is it's also safer. So if this does, for argument's sake, blow shut at any point, it won't break. Obviously this is shatterproof perspex. So what I want to show you now is actually putting it together so you can see, because they are a little bit complicated putting them together if you're using plastic. So I'll just show you the best method of doing that now. Okay, so I've got to do this with two hands, so I'll just put the camera there. So there's the plastic, but what I just want to show you is the actual perspex sits inside these grooves here. So where you can see my finger there, that's where the plastic goes. But if you look at the top edges, they never quite line up. So if you see that part there, as you can see where the glass fits into one bit, it doesn't 100% line up. Now, when you've got 4mm glass, that's not too much of a problem. But what I've got here, this perspex is slightly thicker. So if you tighten up the bolts at the top and at the bottom there, so this one here, and then that one in there, it's sort of still free to move. The easiest way I've found to put these together, let me just show you this way, I hope you can see what I'm doing, is to fit the plastic into the frame as best you can, like that. And then what you need to do is push that into the top, into this top part of the frame here. So it's now pushed into the top, but not actually in the sides. So if I now pull the sides parts in like that, what I can do is I can just very quickly push that in, and then all of the side pieces here are in, and obviously on this side as well are in there. So I think I'm possibly a bit too close to the camera. So as soon as you've got the bottom bit in, you can push the plastic down to make sure that it's in, and that's all nice and square. Just need to push that over slightly, like that. And then this bit, then what you can do is slide that down underneath the glass like that. So I've already got the bolts in here because they need to be in beforehand, like that. Just pushing the bolts through. That will then push down, as will this side here. Like that. And then what you can do then is push this down onto the perspex like that, and then tighten up the nuts at each side, and then that'll hold the piece of perspex in place. Okay, so I'm just fitting the hinge to the top part of the opening window. This used to be sat on there like that, so I've cut that off because that's surplus requirements. That's where it used to fit inside the top part of the apex. So this is going to go on the wall of the greenhouse. What I've done is I've cut the hinge so it's the same length. So what I'm going to do now is pop rivet this into the top of the frame. However, the pop rivets are going to go into the void here where the glass sits or the plastic sits. So what I need to do is just drill the end too, so I can align it up. And then what I'm going to do is put the plastic inside and then drill through the aluminium into the plastic. And then basically what I can do from there is obviously I want to drill into the plastic, so I'll know where the pop rivet is, and then just extend the hole slightly so that the perspex doesn't foul the pop rivet. Okay, so now I've drilled through here and here, so that's where the two pop rivets are going to go, one at each end. Obviously they're going to go all the way along, but what I've done is I've just drilled the two end ones, and what I've done is I've drilled into the plastic. I don't know if you can see the hole, it's just there. There's also one here. Obviously I'm going to extend that hole slightly to take the pop rivet, the other side of it. So what I'm going to do now is just put the two pop rivets in each end, one in each end, and then I'll then know where all the rest of them need to go, and I'll pop rivet all the way along. Okay, so there you can see I've put a pop rivet at this end and a pop rivet at that end, and what I've done is I've drilled through the aluminium and into the plastic on all of the other holes, so I know to put the pop rivet through. And if I take this out of the plastic now, just lift that out of the way. So now if I look at the plastic without, as you can see I've got each hole in place where each of the pop roots is going to go. So what I'll do is now stretch these holes out a little bit further with a larger drill, because obviously as the pop root is put in, it'll expand. I need to stretch these holes so the plastic doesn't break as it stretches, so I'm going to drill that out with something like a 5mm drill. It's just extending that hole down slightly and widening it out to 5mm. Okay, so there's the completed assembly. So the perspex is in, all bolted up at the back, and obviously there's the hinge, pop rooted all the way along to go on to the other bit, which is going to fit into the actual greenhouse, so it'll open and close. So all there is left to do now is to actually fit it into the greenhouse. Okay, so I'm now making the bit that's going to go at the top of the window, which is basically where the hinge is going to attach to. So what I've done is I've basically used another piece, but this piece is actually going to go at the bottom. And all I've done is just use that as a template to mark out where I need to cut it. And then what I'm going to do is just put the hole at the end there and there where it's going to bolt into the framework, and then I'll cut that out as a slot and obviously cut the end off there so that it'll make the piece to go at the top of the window. Okay, so it fits into the frame. I need to cut this sort of section out here so it's the same as that. So all I've done is again just offered it up like that, drawn round it, as you can see. And then what I can do then is just cut that out with the angle grinder, or if you don't have an angle grinder you can just do this with a hacksaw. Okay, so 2 cuts that way, and then just cut that off with the angle grinder going in this way, and then as it's aluminium, just by bending that up and down like that, what you'll find is it will just snap off. Right. So all I need to do now is just go in there with a file and just tidy that up a little bit, and that's that done. Okay, so that's the 2 ends formed. That's one end and that's the other end. So that's all ready now to bolt into the framework. Okay, so this is where the second opening window is going to go. It's kind of in this area here. So what I'm going to do is take these 2 panes of glass out, and I can start to fit it into the frame. Basically all I need to do is remove these clips, which you just pull them out with your finger really, like that. And as I've explained before, the glass is held on with this black sticky back plastic, so you need to potentially go inside and just loosen that off with a knife. So what I'll do is I'll get somebody on this side just holding the glass to make sure it doesn't fall out, and then go inside and just loosen it round with a knife so that the glass will release, and then as soon as I've done that, then obviously I can do the other one from inside, because I'll be able to get through with my arm with the knife to release it. Okay, so that's the glass out, and it actually came out just by teasing it slightly forward and slowly, and what it actually did is it released from the plastic, and I think because it's hot weather today, that's probably most certainly helped it. But what I need to do now is cut a piece of glass to fit the bottom here, and then the opening window will go here. Okay, so now it's come to cut the piece of glass. I've got the piece of glass on an old pair of curtains on the shed floor, and basically what you want to do when you're cutting glass is to have it on a flat surface that's obviously padded, and I've marked on, I don't know if you can see it, but here there's a little black mark there, so I know how wide the piece of glass needs to be. And what I need to do now is establish a straight line, and the easiest way of doing that is just to place over the top of it another piece of glass which I know is obviously straight. Now if I line the top and the bottom up like that, and I line it up with the line that I need how wide it needs to be. Now that most certainly is now. That if I cut along or score along that line there, that'll most certainly give me a straight line or a square line if you like. Now I'm going to be cutting it with this, which is just a standard glass cutter. I've not cleaned the glass yet. What I don't want to do is clean the glass, cut it, and then it doesn't break, or it breaks rather than cut correctly, and then I'm left with a piece of glass I've spent all the time cleaning. So cut it first, clean it after, is always my motto with glass. Now what you don't want to do is put any weight on the glass, so what you want to do is, there's the cutter bit there that's going to score the line. So what I'm going to do is, you need to do it in one fell swoop, so I'm just going to make sure it's square again, like that, and then start at this end. Always start at one end, and then as soon as you get it to score, you want to go down it once. I don't know if you can hear that, but that's scoring a line down the glass. And what you don't want to do is go over it twice. You want to have one line which goes all the way across the glass. Now if I lift this piece of glass off and out of the way, what I've now got is one single line. I'll just get the camera so you can see it. I've got one single line. It's going to be difficult to see, but I don't know if you can, if I show you there, it's not easy to see, but there's a single line. You can just about see it there, and that's where the glass will crack as soon as I start tapping it, which I'll do now. Now this is most certainly the easiest way of cutting glass. Now the older glass gets, the harder it is to cut, or the less likely it is to cut correctly. So I don't know how old this piece of glass is. This is a piece of glass that came out of another window, and obviously it's lost the corner, so this is effectively a scrap piece of glass. So what I'm going to do is cut a good piece out of the scrap piece. Now what you need to do now is, on the other side that you scored, so this side underneath, I'm going to tap the glass with the glass cutter, and as I tap it, you'll start to see fractures forming along the glass. And this score that I've just put on there with the cutter, the cracks will follow the score, and all being well, fingers crossed, I'll get a neat cut that goes all the way from one end to the other. Okay, so the technique is, this is the piece of glass that's going to come off here, and the line is where my finger is here. You can just about see it on the screen. So this is the other side. I scored it on this side at the top. Underneath, what I'm going to do now is strike the glass with this whilst holding it in the air. So I've got my hand under this bit here holding it up. Now if I strike the glass exactly underneath where I scored it, you can't see this, but the glass is actually starting to crack now where I scored it. So I just want to tap it again there, so it's actually cracked at the edge now as well. Notice underneath I've got some cushions to catch the piece of glass as it goes. So I'm just going to go, and you'll hear the sound of the tap changing. And that's how you cut a clean cut on the glass. I don't know if you heard the sound of that breaking, but as you can see, I've now got a nice clean cut on the glass. And so all I did, just to recap, is I scored the line exactly where I wanted it, and then I lifted the glass up, and underneath I just tapped it along the crack. Start at one end, about 6 inches or so from the end, and so as soon as you look at the glass from the side, and you can actually see the crack in the glass, and then tap it at the end, and then just work your way along like I've just done, and the crack will basically propagate all the way along the glass, and you'll end up with a nice clean cut on the glass. Okay, so this is the piece of glass now. All I've done is I've gone around it with some wire wool and washed it. So as long as I can get the dog out of the way, come out of the way, Dorothy. All I need to do now is just slot that piece of glass into the frame like that. Now that's going to form the sort of the bottom bit, if you like. So all I'm going to do is just bob that in, trying to get it so there's equal spacing at that side and this side. Now just to secure it into place to stop it falling out, I'm just going to put a couple of clips in for now. So I'll just put one in the bottom there. Like that. And then that's one in that side. And that's just to secure it in place basically. So what you don't want to do is, after you've gone to the trouble of cutting a piece of glass, is finding that it will come out. So that's the piece of glass secured in place. Now this piece of aluminium here, this is the one you saw in the early clip, that's going to fit in kind of there like that. Like that. And then on the other side here, that's going to hopefully fit down in there. So I think this is slightly bigger than it needs to be, and there is a bit of jiggery pokery going on with this. Yes, it is slightly bigger, look. So what I need to do is cut this down. So I'll just cut that down so it fits in, and then I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. So it's obvious that the greenhouse that this came out of has got a different style of framework to this, but what I've done is I've cut that down and put another hole in there for the bolt that's going to go in this side, and then this side I've just drilled a hole, so as you can see the framework is slightly closer together. So that's the right hole for the bolts to go through. So what I'll do now, I can't do this one-handed, so I'll have to show you as soon as I've got it bolted in. So now I'm going to bolt this in place so it looks, I've had to cut that bit down because that's the bit that's on the corner of the greenhouse. So that goes in there, and then this bit I've just pulled the black sticky out of there a little bit just to help it in, and then that's going to sit down in there like that, and it just slots behind. I'll just put the camera down so you can see. I don't know if you can see, but it just slots behind the glass. So the edge of the glass is actually at the top there. There's the edge of the glass, look. So it just sits actually on top of the glass, and that stops the glass moving, and also any sort of vibration. Now, there's most certainly not enough room in there to get any foam, so I'm just going to leave that as it is. So all I need to do now is put the bolt into that bottom corner there, and then one in this one here, and I'll show you that when it's finished. But that's just about ready to go in now. So I'm just going to put some of the bolts in, and I'll show you what it looks like afterwards. Okay, so that's that side bolted in. So as you can see, I've got a bolt in there up against it, so that's nice and firm in there. And on this side, again, it's bolted through the groove. So I had to cut the groove through so I could drop a bolt onto it, because there was no way I could get this into the frame with it as it is. And I've just put that black sticky back foam back down there just for now. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to work out. Now I'm ready to put in the opening window. Okay, so now we can put the opening window in, which is the one we prepared in the previous clip. Now that's it sitting on the bottom. As you can see, that's a nice and tight fit at the bottom. Hinges at the top, so what I need to do now is to fix, there's the hinge just opening there. So what I'm going to do this with is two pieces of aluminium. This first piece, as you can see, I've put a groove in that way to fit in this far end here, and then on the other end I've got a more traditional one to fit in that piece there. So this is basically going to sit in there. Let's just get it in. So I have already had this in once, so that's going to fit in there. Then that's going to slot down like that. Now the hinge is going to sit actually right up against it like that. So that's this piece on the inside is actually going to be covering, I don't know if you can see, but if we look from the inside like that, it's actually going to cover the top part of the window to stop any drafts coming through. So this is the opposite way around to the last one. But what I need to do is the glass is going to sit obviously in here with the back of the glass there, and I obviously need to join the hinge to this piece of aluminium here. So what I'm going to do is put in this piece of aluminium like that. Now it can't go in correctly, it actually goes this way, because this bar here is in the way, but that's basically going to sit on top of the hinge like that, sort of in that kind of position like that. So the glass will go against this. Now this is just an old piece of aluminium which I've just recycled basically. I need to clean it up a little bit. As you can see, it's a bit dirty, but that's going to go onto the hinge kind of like that. So there'll be pop rivets coming through here, and then the glass will sit on the back of that, obviously on here as well. And then I need to cut this edge off the back a little bit, so that it'll basically not foul this bar here. So I need to take off a few millimetres off the back of that, and then that'll pop rivet onto the other piece of aluminium, which will be sort of in that sort of position, kind of like that. Okay, so I've marked on where all the holes need to go to correspond with the hinge, the holes is in the hinge, and what I've done is I've just put a centre punch through each hole to so I can align the drill. And on the other side, what I've done is basically measured the width of the hinge and also the width of the piece that's going to go over the top, this one. So that's 15mm, and the hinge is 11mm. So obviously what I've done is I've measured up 26mm onto there, which is basically an inch, just over an inch, and then I'm going to cut along that line there, because that's basically the excess that I don't need. So I'm just going to cut that along and get rid of that, and then that'll be all ready to go onto the framework. Okay, so I've drilled the holes along there to go onto the hinge, and what I've done is I've I've cut the side of that off, pop riveted onto there, and I've just pop riveted onto it. And I just want to show you a quick trick. The pop rivet gun won't go down the pop rivet because of this piece of aluminium here. So all you need to do, just a quick trick, is if you get some little nuts and put that over the pop rivet like that, it'll actually space up, and you can actually get the pop rivet to go in properly. Okay, so that's the windrow riveted up, and that's basically the hinge working like that. And what I've done is I've pop riveted through, as you can see along there, so the hard glass is going to, sort of hard mounted glass should I say, will fit in and back onto this here. Then obviously this bit's going to be outside, so what I might do is put something along there. I'm not quite sure yet, but that's basically going to be bolted into the frame in a moment, and then that's going to be the opening window fixed in, and then all I need to do then is just cut a piece of glass to go up here. So the next step is to fit this into the greenhouse. Okay, so that's the window in, opening and closing. As you can see, it closes into the frame. Now this is why I chose to put this one on the side, so as you're walking past, we know when it's shut, you know, it's basically the same as the standard height of the glass. Whereas the other one, as you can see, that actually jots out. It jots out by about another 1.25 inches from the frame, so that's why I didn't choose to put it up at the other side here. But anyway, so that's bolted in. If I just go in, it's bolted in, as you can see, into the frame there, and then also bolted into the frame there, and then there's the hinge running across the top. So all I need to do now is put another piece of glass in the top here, and then the window will open and close like that as soon as I've got the mechanism on the bottom. So just for now, it's just started to rain, so what I'll do is I'll just put a piece of glass in here, just to fill that hole up, and I'll just leave that ajar by just basically propping it for now to get some ventilation in the greenhouse, and then I'll make the mechanism to open and close it and basically lock it. Okay, so now it's time to put the piece of glass in. I've cut this piece of glass, and all I did basically was sit a full 2x2 pane of glass in there, and then just marked off at the top here so I could work out exactly how tall it needed to be. And what I did is I took a few millimetres off, because what I don't want is the glass to be tight and the frame to sort of catch it, snag it and break it. I've put some tape along the top there to prevent any sort of draft or anything in the winter. These panes, there's actually a sort of gap there, and but they're quite tight up against the top. So, but I thought, you know, I have got increased draft with this window anyway through the side. So I've just put some along the top there just to minimise the draft, and I've also put some along the bottom there as well to seal against this piece that I put in. So all it's a case of doing now is getting the piece of glass. So there you go, and then just setting it in the bottom of the frame. Now what you need to do, most certainly with a sticky back plastic, is make sure that the glass is sort of halfway across like that, and then as soon as you've got it in, just basically drop it in like that, and then just by pushing it in like that, what'll happen is this sticky back will kind of adhere to it, and the glass will give very slightly, so that will most certainly stop the drafts. Now obviously what you need to do reasonably quickly as soon as you've got it in is put the clips in. So I'm going to be putting 4 clips. I've only got 2 clips here, but I'll be putting 4 clips in. And what I always try to do, you haven't always got to do it, but I always try and get the 2 clips to correspond with each other either side. Then it puts the least amount of strain on the framework. So you don't have to do that, but I've always tried to do that because I think that's slightly better from a stress point of view. Most certainly with these, the Y ones aren't too bad because the load's kind of spread across kind of, I don't know, 4 inches or so of the frame, you know, the ones that the Y goes in and out. But these ones are quite sort of localised, and you can, you know, the frame does flex a little bit, the aluminium. So what I'll do is I'll put another one at the top there and one in there as well. But that's basically the window, so that's nice and in there. It's nice and sealed across the bottom, and the window will now sort of open and close. So I'll just back up a little bit. So as you can see now, the window will open and close. It goes quite high really. But what I've actually got at the moment is just to hold this open. I've just got a piece of bamboo in here, just a bamboo cane, and if I do that, it'll drop down in the hole, and then it'll just hold the window open for me. So what I'm going to do is basically make a mechanism next to fit on here and at the side here. Then that's going to go up the side so I can open and close it from the middle of the greenhouse. And I'll be showing you how to do that next. Sorry, just one other comment. The other reason why I've put this tape in, which I forgot to quickly say just, is what I don't want is glass hard against metal. What I want is to have some kind of foam rubber between the metal and the glass. So if the frame does flex at any point, it's, you know, the glass is against rubber as opposed to actual aluminium. So that's, you know, it's the best scenario to keep the glass from you know, sort of being broken in the frame. So I'm afraid that's all we've got time for today. Please don't hesitate to put any comments or questions below, and I'll always get back to you. And I'll see you on the next episode of Jim's Allotment Garden.